Ali, a longtime partner of mine. And so when I heard girls soccer to C-suite, I decided to start at the beginning, soccer and girls. There were many points made about professional women and their career opportunities, the challenges we face, what it takes to get through college, your first career passes, making up the professional ladder, whether it's in business, science, faculty, academic medicine. We know these challenges, but I'm kind of talking about from a personal perspective. And then what we are doing here at Children's National, because we have a very passionate community that is interested to advance this topic. So a little bit about myself at the beginning. I'm from Germany. I'm a soccer fan. I live at a house with 4 soccer channels, so it's part of my life. My husband is Somalian. I have 2 kids. One is 26 and 25. My husband has been an active soccer player and coach in college, so soccer brought us together. I first had a daughter. 2.5 years later, I had a son. And my husband was extremely excited when he realized that they could kick the ball on the right and the left foot equally. So there was, at that point, no question about basketball or anything else, assuming it was going to be soccer. So he got very active with my daughter. We were on the sideline in PB soccer. She advanced, and she ultimately became a soccer goalie. And my son equally pursued the local kind of community soccer goals. So one thing that was very clear from the beginning, which was quite a stretch from coming from a very different culture, that my husband treated my daughter and my son equally. So there was no question that they would have the same opportunities, there were the same expectations set. And I can only tell you that my daughter in soccer gained a lot of valuable skills that really carried on. She was part of a team. She realized that she had to play different positions. She realized that that every part of a soccer team, each player makes a different contribution, that if that is not in sync, it's not going to work. If you don't have a good defense and you don't have a good midfield, it doesn't matter what happens on the front. If you don't have a good goalie, the rest of the team can do all they can do, you still will lose. But what it's also really taught you that you work as a team, but there are moments where you're the one who has to do it. You have to make that shot, you make that pass, you make that catch. And especially if you're a goalie, you are celebrated when all goes well. And if you let the goal in at the end, you personally feel that you really let your team down, and that requires resilience to come back up. Learning that from very early on and being a team player, I saw that when she went to elementary school, high school, college, and now really there's very valuable skills in that. It also shows me that as a woman, that if you have early on in your life a strong role model, it is a standard that you set how you expect to be treated by men in your life. And my daughter today will still relate how men, teachers, mentors, friends treat her because the way that her father has valued her. So having women who don't grow up with strong role models, I can see that is challenging. So we can be the best female mentors, but there are men that control a woman's life and a woman's career progression and education, and having strong role models really is helpful. And I think I always say it's good to have female role models, but when I talk to many of our leaders, especially when in our early careers there were not necessarily as many female role models, it has frequently been a male role model or a sponsor that has helped us. So it's this diverse community, I think that's important. I also then, from a parent perspective, it's really what I feel very strongly, we are more and more in a digital world. And STEM is important, but it's really a societal need to develop STEM competencies. It is no longer acceptable to think that STEM is something very unique. You need to have STEM competencies to be a cashier, to design the colors in your house, to figure out what's going on in your car. So to really embrace that we're living in a more and more technical and global society, and that there really isn't an option to stop at a certain level in math, or not wanting to know about biology or physics is not for me, but to really look in our educational curriculum that STEM is integrated. It's nothing unique. It's a competencies. And when you look at many countries around the world, the expectations that people have in K-12 is very different than we have. There's competencies that other countries develop, we don't have, and that it doesn't make us as competitive in the market. So feeling comfortable with STEM and doing STEM competencies, and then also relating. STEM is used for art. If you wanted to do three-dimensional art projects, you need to have an understanding of geometry. If you want to understand music, there's an opportunity to learn about sound wave. So elementary, pre-K is absolutely essential, that if it's not in the home, that the teachers are educated to bring a STEM curriculum into the framework. And one thing, through one of our grant programs, which I briefly will talk about, we have learned that many teachers do not feel comfortable to bring STEM subjects. And when you look at it in K-12, in the early years education, their primary expertise is not necessarily math and science. They are taught to teach these subjects, but when you look at how many hours a week they actually target, it's probably the minimum curriculum in some classes, and people do not feel comfortable leading a science fair, doing a gardening project, putting projects that frequently actually you can engage kids because it's what's happening in their community. Do we have more rainfall? Do we have less rainfall? Can we clean up a pond? What's the environment like? How do we partner with Girls and Boys Clubs? I mean, there are many community activities that really introduce STEM principles to young girls. And what happens is that when you see what it does, it becomes part of your life. You're not afraid about, okay, I'm going to take this biology course because I really realized, my dog got sick, and what happens, and how can I get infections, and why do we have to have hand sanitizers, and why do I wear a mask? So it's really having adults in your lives that, if they're not in your home, that kind of make these connections for you. And so I always found in my case that the elementary school teachers really complemented what we try to do in our homes and provided opportunities. Both of my kids ended up in STEM. They were very fortunate to be in very prestigious STEM schools, but I have to tell you that in there I also found that it's the same people that are very creative. They are creative in arts, they're creative in science, they're good writers, they're photographers. And when I now look at my professional fields, it's all these skill sets that you need to have in the disciplines that complement the biomedical and engineering enterprise, right? You can't write about science if you don't understand science. You can't design a building if you don't understand three-dimensional and the work that's going on. I think if we would have a more educated population, maybe many of the questions during COVID-19 wouldn't have come up because it was sensible to everybody. Why would I wear a mask? Why would I clean my Why would I clean my hands? Why should I be 6 feet away? So I think really developing and making it a focus is very important. The next thing, and obviously it's mentors, it's role models, it's opportunity, and to be open. And very briefly, here Children's National, and it really has been a grassroots initiative. Over the last 14, 15 years, I think, since we have been here, we found that it was very important to create a pipeline to life science, not only for people working in the lab or people focusing on medicine, but all the other professions that are critical. Whether it's the radiation technologist, whether it's the engineers that make the building run, whether it's the pharmacists, whether it's nursing staff, respiratory therapists. Here in science, we have people and engineers that support our facility. It was actually very amusing last year. We hired 4 female engineers, and I can tell you, we wrote an article about them, and the first time they showed up, and they were talking to our scientists about what we're going to do with this equipment and how we're going to set up the room. People said, oh yeah, I knew you were coming. We knew a group was coming, but we're waiting for the engineer. And then they said, well, we are the engineers. And so it even took kind of a change for here to realize that our crew is all female. But it's kind of the steps that you take that say people have to be competent. That's the fundamental basis, but otherwise we want to have a diverse team. Science is based on teams, and so is the support teams. So we have here an internship program that brings about each summer about 150 students here from high school to medical school. They come from very diverse backgrounds from, have a large number and focus of underrepresented minorities. We have high school students from inner city schools and middle schools that we have here part of an NIH Science Education Partnership Award. We also teach the teachers. They're in the labs for 6 weeks to basically learn the subjects they're going to be teaching their kids over the year. And we throw them all in the mix. We have the people that have challenges to come here even and pay for the subway ticket. And we have people that are in very prestigious organizations, come from very affluent backgrounds, and they're all kind of work which is out of